Yeah, some of them are fan films. Just mad props to anyone who's willing to try to make a film project. And hello, everyone. Welcome to the spoiler room. We pound our chest as we end He's Not Loki month here in the spoiler room. Yes, that's right. We've been looking at films where Tom Hiddleston doesn't play Loki. And this one has a few Marvel alum in it tonight as we are talking about 2017's Kong Skull Island. Very excited. I've got the soundtrack here on vinyl in the background. I just picked up recently. It was on sale. Waxworks had a half price sale. Don't.
Yeah, I jumped in on that. Sorry.
Did you? No. Did you? What'd you get?
Alice, Sweet Alice.
Ooh, yeah. That was sold out, I think, by the time I did that. I got Kong Skull Island, and then I got like Starry Eyes, and then I got Dr. Sleep, and I got Dr. Sleep soundtracks on vinyl, and it was like 40% off. So I was like, I asked the wife, she's like, yeah, fine.
Rolls her eyes, fine, but you have to go cut the grass.
Well, that's not a problem. I'll go cut the grass any day. She's just like, yeah, fine. Okay, fine. 40% off. So there you go. But we're not enough of that vinyl talk. Let's talk that another time. We're talking Kong Skull Island, and tonight I've got a wonderful crew with me tonight to talk about this creature feature. First off, she's back with us from the horror retrospective. It's none other than Kara. Hello, Kara. How are you?
Doing well. Glad to be back.
Yeah, we missed you. I knew something came up or something you could make Lovers Left Alive, but yeah, glad you could make this one. So, which by the way, Ian and I loved Lovers Left Alive. Not sure
how.
Wow. Right? We agreed on a movie. I know, right?
Gotta savor the good times, Mark.
Yeah, I wished I had made it for that one. It was so weird. I enjoyed it. It's very different, but I know we're not reviewing that one today.
No, that's okay. I was wondering how you how you kind of felt about that one. So yeah. But tonight, folks, we also have Mr. Ian Simmons with us, guy who keeps coming back for more. I imagine he has some thoughts on this film, considering his other thoughts on the monster films that we've talked about either in private or in public in the past. So how you doing, sir?
Well, it's good. I mean, I think I can, my part in this conversation, I have some thoughts, like two of them. So I'm willing to get those out of the way and let you and Kara talk about how much you love Kong Skull Island.
I might be on my own Skull Island tonight. We don't know how Kara feels. We'll find out though. But thank you everyone else for venturing down the stairs, pulling up a chair. I already popped my drink, my big Simply Spiked lemonade. There you go, big old can of it. Because
it looks like green apple from here, kind of.
Because yeah, it's the color of the webcam, but because it's this big Kong is big, so I have a big drink for a big monster kaiju film. So
I should have grabbed my Wicked apple cider Camden.
Oh, there you go. That's good. Always tasty. So Kara, if you wouldn't mind, would you give the synopsis for Kong Skull Island?
I don't remember any of the characters' names, so I'm probably going to refer to them as that guy.
That's fine. That's what I'm sure a lot of people refer to him as.
So we begin where young John C. Reilly is pretty much stranded on Skull Island with I'm not sure what the guy's name was. I'm already starting with that guy. But eventually they run across their first kaiju creature and they decide that they're just going to band together. We fast forward to years later. John C. Reilly's made friends with the natives, and we have this expedition of people coming out to actually determine whether or not there are monsters on the island. So then, what were those bombs? They woke up everything, basically.
There were seismic bombs because Monarch, which is the secret organization that's tracking monsters in the world of the legendary monster world, they wanted proof because they were going to lose funding. And so they piggyback off of a Landsat. They were doing a analysis because Skull Island's never been touched before. It's one of those islands that no one's explored ever, and so they think there might be resources there, and so they have these seismic charges to do scientific experiments to kind of see what's in the ground.
A true virgin island, not just a virgin in name.
Exactly. I'm holding back so many comments from that right now.
Yeah, it's kind of hard not to take a swing. It's kind of like the island that actually got to wear the white wedding dress, and it was true.
Very, very well put. And yes, hijinks ensue with the military escort that comes with the science group. And yeah, monster hijinks ensue. We've got Tom Hiddleston playing a guide, Brie Larson playing a photographer who was in the trenches, because this is taking place just at the end of Vietnam, and which was an interesting time period to pick for this. And yeah, we get monsters and soldiers and Sam Jackson glaring at Kong a lot. And yeah, this is so Kara, I we'll get to Ian on how he feels. But Kara, what do you think of Kong Skull Island?
I enjoyed it, and it's one of those situations I'm kicking myself for not having watched it sooner. I got it when it first came out, and this was my first night finally sitting down to watch it, and I think that melee kaiju fight at the end was worth it.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun to watch. I liked how that unfolded, especially. And yeah, the creatures, I like the creature design, but the melee fight at the end definitely was a lot of fun. What about you, Ian? What's your initial thought with Kong Skull Island?
Well, I saw Godzilla versus Kong was a couple of years ago, and that came out. I'd never seen this movie before.
Okay. Sure.
I saw the Gareth Edwards Godzilla from 2013. I saw Godzilla versus Kong. Was there another one in there?
King of the Monsters. Godzilla King of the Monsters. How do you not? That was all kaiju action all the time. That was like uber, like hold Mark back from buying multiple tickets on the same day to watch it movie.
I don't even remember if I watched that. The thing is, like, these movies are not for me because I've watched a lot of them, and they're all one. I hate to say it. Once you've seen one, you've seen them all, and I'm glad you guys enjoy it. But when these things, especially when they get to be 2.5, 3 hours, whatever, it's just like it's just an epic waste of time because the characters are paper thin. The special effects are just the same special effects that we've had for a decade and a half. So what am I going to see these movies for? It's great that they've got these two branded monsters, but honestly, a couple weeks ago, there was a comic book that came out that I bought just for the ridiculousness of the title. It was Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong.
I know. I need that issue.
Look, in that 24-page setup, I had more entertainment, intrigue, and imagination than I have in all 4 of these damn legendary universe movies, because I actually had characters and I gave a shit about the monsters. I can't say that about any of these other things. I mean, I saw Peter Jackson's Kong. I know that was a different, take on a different universe. It's not in this legendary continuity, but I'm like, yeah, I got it. I got what happened. I got all of this character has to offer in the original Kong and Peter Jackson's Kong, and now we just have a new Kong with new fancy special effects. And 20 years from now, we're going to have the same thing with new special effects then, and it's going to be the same boring ass spectacle. Those are my thoughts. Aside from what happens with these characters, the ability to, I don't know, navigate poisonous gas, which the brain trust that put this movie together seems to think that just having a gas mask on while running through a field full of poisonous gas, it doesn't do anything to your skin in terms of like an allergic reaction or breaking out into hives or burning blisters. It's just, you just can't breathe it in. But when you're done rescuing the person that you're sent in there to rescue, you can take off your gas mask, even though you're still surrounded by gas, and be fine. You can stand in a literal lake of napalm. And as long as the fire is not literally touching you, you're not going to burn to a crisp as if you're standing a few feet away from the sun. This movie's dumb. But I would say it's dumb fun, but I didn't have any fun. I'm glad you guys did. And I'm out. Good night, everybody.
No, I mean, to me, it's like one of those rock'em sock'em matches. Like they're always the same, but you show up for the fight because it's fun.
I show up for the fight, sure, and then I leave after like a minute because, like, yeah, it's the two plastic robots and they're punching each other. Oh shit, I'm gonna go watch something else.
We had this discussion a bit, folks, when I believe I was on Ian's show with the Cog versus Godzilla discussion we had on that show, where we went a little back and forth as well about caring whether or not all the people in the building died from the monster fight or not. And here's the thing, I get it, and I see where you're coming from. I guess for me, I enjoy these for the spectacle more than the characters. You know what you're kind of going to get with the characters. Um, After watching all the Godzilla feature films back to back a couple of years ago before King of the Monsters came out, um they were all, while they were varied at their core, it was always about the creature, the monsters. You didn't really care about the humans. The humans were just were there to kind of, I don't
They
know,
were eye candy.
they were eye candy a lot of times. You know, and I get that. I you know, but for me, I dug this because of, well, first off, every other story pretty much we've seen in Kong takes place in what, the 30s or whatever before this, or even
It would have been like probably the 40s because it
or the
was
40s,
the whole
yeah.
nuclear testing and Hiroshima and all that. Yeah.
Right. But even Peter Jackson's Kong, and that was set back further. So for me, I thought it was just a kind of a fun, interesting twist that Kong lives in a jungle on a jungle island, and they set it during Vietnam period, and you're involving Vietnam and they handle this film, even though it's got a big, huge kaiju, they handle it in many ways like a Vietnam film that we've seen. I mean, he hits all of the Vietnam film type of tropes that we have in here, including the slow-mo of the general sitting there as chaos is around him and his guys are on fire and running past him or whatnot. And, slow-mo. We even have, did you catch the ode to Uncommon Valor? I think that was the film. Or maybe, no, it's Platoon, maybe even. At the end, when the monster is coming, and the guy takes the grenades and he holds them out like this to be munched by the creature. I'm like, holy crap, I've seen that in like one or two other Vietnam films, only to get hit by the tail by the monster rather than get eaten, which I loved that gimmick personally.
I didn't understand that. I like Shea Wiggum as an actor.
Mhm.
I think he does pretty well in this movie, but he had one of the most head-scratchingly pointless, I'm going to sacrifice myself for the good of the group. You could just lob
Yeah.
those things at the monster. Just
You
throw
could.
them while you're running away. What are you doing?
You could just lob them at the monsters, but he had seen so much crap and he had lost a good friend that he just, he decided to make the ultimate sacrifice, which happens quite a bit in this film, actually.
Well, it's not really the ultimate sacrifice because in doing what he did, he risked not being successful, which he wasn't.
Right.
I mean, he should have done everything he could to protect the other people that he was with.
Right.
Now, if they had all died, and then he does the whole like Thomas Jane at the end of the Mist thing. Well, I mean, he killed his compatriots. But it's like, it's one thing to sacrifice yourself or whatever when there's no one else left, and then it's not even a sacrifice; it's just suicide. But yeah, I don't know what was going on there. The Vietnam thing I think was an interesting setting, but it left a really bad taste in my mouth because they don't really comment on it. But it's the idea of all of those soldiers were getting ready to go home. They'd survived Vietnam. They were literally on the helicopters to go back to the States when they get this call from this corporation to go escort this survey group out to Kong's, to Skull Island or whatever. And then there's just like, how many dozens of people just get killed in that initial confrontation with Kong and everything. It's cool and, big special effects and everything, but I'm like, it's just incredibly sad because you survive Vietnam only to get taken down by this giant beast, and the movie doesn't care enough to like comment on that or like make a thing out of it. It's just like, oh yeah, they're just, you know, random bad guys or good guys, I guess, that we never really see their faces. They might as well be, you know, invisible henchmen.
Yeah, or you could see them trying to make a statement about how the soldiers never get away from war. But
This movie isn't smart enough to do that, Mark.
No, I was stuck on that too. I wasn't sure if it was supposed to be a metaphor
Mhm.
or something, and I never saw it.
What it needed was a moment from Aliens where Ripley confronts Paul Reiser, and she's, you know, when he gets caught trying to
Mhm.
cryogenically freeze them to take the alien specimen back to the corporation, and she says, you know, these people are dead.
Yep. The internet decided to freeze Ian.
It's like one of those echo and slowly
Oh,
backing
there he
away
is.
type echoes. So he got an awesome effect by it just happened.
Yeah,
Yeah.
saying dead in an electronic sound actually sounded pretty cool for you. So there.
Well, there you
Yeah,
go. I'll have
it
to listen to
worked.
that on the replay. For me, it did. Am I back yet?
Yep, you're back. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, when Ripley says, these people are dead, Burke, and she like
Mhm.
kind of slams up against the wall, and she's like, I'm not going to let you get away with this one because these are, you know,
Right.
these aren't
Mhm.
just, you know, grunts, they're people, essentially. That this movie needed that. But
Mhm.
again, this is a dumb popcorn blockbuster, and Aliens was an actual war film. This movie wears the skin of a war film, but
Mhm.
gussies it up in, you know, an Independence Day kind of baggy pants.
See, my only real complaint was okay, they're using the music to set the Vietnam era, but play music I haven't heard 1,000 times over. Even Donnie Darko used not commonly used music, but it still set the setting for the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's funny watching it again. It's like the third or fourth time I've watched this film. I chuckle at the use of the soundtrack. Now I've got the score. The score sounds awesome, by the way. The score is fantastic. Nice epic score. Actually, I've been quite happy with all the legendary scores for the legendary monsters. They at least really sound like epic scores for monster films. But for the vocals tracks that they had, I was chuckling at this time around, listening to going, oh, they went to Vietnam's greatest hits. And they just picked that. I'm like, they could have threw in a little bit more variety, though at the same time, I didn't mind because I love those songs. So
Yeah,
but
that's what I was kind of groaning about. It's like, let me listen to something I don't hear in every single Vietnam movie.
mhm. See, and it makes me wonder if underneath maybe they were trying, and who knows, maybe there's some stuff on edited or changed somewhere because they maybe tried to get uh too smart or whatever. Because there does seem like an underlying thing to where they are almost not picking on, but playing up each of the Vietnam tropes almost as satirical in a way. I'm not sure. But it's just it is one of those things where there's many other songs out there that identify it as a war film, and they picked these ones which you've heard in every Vietnam film. And like I said, maybe that's what they were going for, but at the same time, I'm like, I would have liked a little extra variety in the music that they had for the vocal soundtrack, but the score
Yeah.
I dig. The score I dig quite a bit.
I mean,
Um,
like, just for fun, even if it doesn't fit, I would have liked to have heard something like Lowrider.
Lowrider would have been good. Lowrider would have been a good one.
That would have been good for when they're putting the plane back together.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
that would have worked.
that could have worked. That would have worked really well for Lowrider, which eh, see, and I like John C. Riley's part in it. I liked the whole story of him being with the natives and such, and the whole boat thing, and him and the two different generations of soldiers, and that I liked that subplot with his character quite a bit, actually. But it's John C. Riley. I love him in just about anything that he was in. I always loved the characters he played, even though it was all very similar. He did it very well. and I really like his character here in this one. But what'd you think of John C?
He was there. I mean, he's done this part before and he does it well. But I mean, that's kind of the same thing. Like, you're going to ask the question at the end of this, do we like Tom Hiddleston as Loki or do we like him as this character? I don't know what the hell his character's name is. He doesn't have a character in this movie, Tom Hiddleston. No one has a character in this movie.
Person.
He's Mr.
What's
Tracker
that?
Person.
Right. And so there's no, again, this movie isn't about people, it's about the monsters. And John C. Reilly, that's, I look at this movie and I was watching it thinking, what if this were an actual movie? You might have things like establishing that a soldier who has been living on this island for 30 years with this tribe, ostensibly a good portion of that inside the gates under their care, because outside of this walled fortress is, the madness of the jungle and the monsters. He never learned to speak their language. They never learned to speak his language. They're all just these silent, stoic, generic, almost like racially offensive caricatures of like the Lost Tribe people, kind of like we were talking about with Green Inferno a while ago.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sorry, even if you don't end up like speaking it fluently, you cannot live with, in a community of people for a year, let alone 3 decades, without picking up something.
Well, he
But
did. He did. He literally said it there that after he'd been around them for a while, he understands them, even though they don't say much of anything.
Yeah, that's cover. I want to hear him conversing with them and talking with them. And also that goes back to, I don't buy it. That's that stoic, mystical tribe bullshit that paints people as like, the noble warrior culture that doesn't communicate. No, those aren't people. Those are ideas of people and their caricatures. And it's just, I don't buy it. But then again, I go back to, what if this was an actual movie? Oh, I forgot I'm watching Kong Skull Island.
What about you, Kara? How do you feel about our NATO Sid John C. Reilly's character?
They were just there. I mean, they were pretty much throwaway characters. They're just around so that we know John C. Reilly was well during that time, that he was well taken care of. He's obviously well fed because he's not skin and bones.
Well, there's a lot. There's a lot of meat on the monster bones. So you kill the smaller monster, like those bird monsters. There's a lot of meat there, So
The pterodactyl with the skull face.
Yeah, the pterodactyls with the skull face and the skull crushers. Which and we got our title character Kong, who I really love Kong in this. I liked Kong in this better than in Peter Jackson's Kong, in all honesty. I liked this one a lot more. I liked how they was portrayed. I liked seeing this fight scenes. I liked how they kind of conveyed some emotions. They do touch on the old Kong Beauty and the Beast sort of angle, where he doesn't become nearly as enamored as our old Kong with a lady. And what do you think of that, Kara, with the change up a bit of what we've seen in the past with Kong, which was always he becomes obsessed with the blonde?
He obviously realized it wasn't going to work out. He's so big. She's this tiny thing with big boobs.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
he had more common sense than the other Kongs from the past.
He did. He's like, yeah, those ladies were just too much trouble. Nope, I'm sorry.
What was it? Helen of Troy.
Yeah, exactly. But he does still protect her because at the end, she had to set off the signal flare to let folks know, where they were and come get us, basically, because the groups end up getting separated. The soldiers follow Sam Jackson's Preston Packard, who just loses it and wants to kill Kong. He suddenly becomes Ahab in this whole thing, to where he's going after Kong. And he has most of his soldiers follow him. And then you have Tom Hiddleston's character, Mr. Conrad, who's a tracker who takes kind of the civilians. He's an ex-soldier. And he's like, yeah, you guys go do your revenge thing. We're just going to try to get off the island. But they do eventually have to come together. and she's on the hill, and during the monster fight, the big battle at the end, she gets knocked off the hill and dumps into the water, and Kong actually protects her as well. So we still have the Kong protecting the lady in distress, so to speak, but they do a variation of it. And I don't know, I liked it. I liked the slightly different approach for it. Just don't think of her not being crushed by his palm of his hand as he's carrying her while fighting. I'm gonna say that ran across my head too. I'm not saying this is a perfect film, but for me, I like my monster films, and this hit a lot of the notes that I was looking for in it. And I think, uh, characters, sure. You want characters, sure. I want to see my monsters fight. We get a lot of Kong action. You get far more Kong action in here than you do Godzilla action in the 2014 Godzilla.
Oh, the
Which
chunky Godzilla.
Yeah, chunky Godzilla. Yeah, which
He's not fat. He's buff.
he's he's bulky. He's he got that protein. He's on that diet. Working out. He's buff. He looks a lot better than Zilla, though. Screw that 90. Okay, so the Godzilla in the Matthew Broderick film that exists.
I like that one.
In that film that exists, that Godzilla is officially in the world of Godzilla, but he's referred to as Zilla. He doesn't get the full title. He's just referred to
Gojira.
as Zilla. He's not even.
They did make reference to the original Godzilla.
They do. In Kong, they do reference it. Well, because Kong Skull Island is setting up the Monarch angle more with this. We're introduced more John Goodman's character. He's the head of it. We get teased at the end credit sequence as well.
Yeah.
That Monarch's in here. You could tell they were setting it up for this organization, which again, another thing that I really like, the idea of Monarch and the fact that there was more than just one Titan, that just Godzilla and just Kong. There's actually many other Titans, which we come to find out later in Kong, in Godzilla King of the Monsters, which I watched 3 movies last night. Okay. I watched Kong Skull Island, and after I watched Kong Skull Island, I'm like, oh shit. Well, now I got to watch Godzilla King of the Monsters, which I just adore. And then after that I got done, I'm like, well, hell, I got to watch Kong versus Godzilla now. So I just watched all.
How the hell late were you up last night, Mark? Did you go to sleep?
Night or morning? Let's just.
Oh, super early then.
There you go. See, I went to bed super early in the morning.
It was one of those early AMs.
I still
earlier than usual.
got like 4.5 hours of sleep. So, I was also doing some work I had to do. So I was being productive as well as watching the films. So there's that. But
you at least had to have had a burger or a pizza to go with that.
Well, yeah. Well, I ate some snacks and beverages and such. But I'm a sucker, okay, for the kaiju films. I fully recognize the thin characters and the cliches put in here. But at the end of the day, I am loving the shots that we get of Kong in here. The whole fire sequence with him versus Sam Jackson, who couldn't have been that hard to direct him, really. I think the director just said, "Yo, Sam, just look pissed off." What, motherfucker? Just look pissed off. All right, and that's all he had to do for most of the film was look pissed off. And I liked Sam Jackson. I liked the whole thing between him and his hatred towards Kong and his face off in Kong. I don't know. I guess this falls back to being the visual guy. There is some really cool, I think, visual sequences or scenes in here for a monster film that just strike me and I enjoy watching. I don't know. Maybe I'm as shallow as a puddle. I'm sorry, Ian. I'm shallow as a puddle.
No, we all have the things that we enjoy, but I mean, when you say you got 4.5 hours of sleep, I'm like, yeah, you watched a bunch of these movies. But
Oh, yeah. It, one of the things I will say though is the thing that they are successful in watching them all back to back is something that sometimes when films are trying to do this, it don't feel quite consistent. It does feel like they're all actually in the same world as far as the production design, the tone, the way things are written, everything. They do a good job of establishing it that all of this stuff actually is in the real world and not that they have this monster film and we're just going to work it into this world. I mean it plays out the style, the direction, even in Godzilla, Kong versus Godzilla. They even do the thing where they kind of do that with yes, I'm using the analogy, pardon me folks, Infinity War. When we get to Guardians of the Galaxy, we go from having like an orchestral score or whatnot. We get the music that we're used to seeing with the Guardians of the Galaxy films, the vocal track, the vocal deep cut or whatever that you get. In Kong versus Godzilla, you get the same thing. Godzilla gets instrumental. Kong, when we see him, he gets a vocal song too, as well. So I mean, they do that as well. But Kong, I think, is a good setup. I like the setup and the ideas that they have here for it. And it made me want to see more. But again, I'm just here for seeing two big creatures fight for like it's why I love Pacific Rim, and everybody's like, yeah, it was okay. I'm like, I love Pacific Rim because I got exactly what the trailer promised. I got big fucking robots fighting big fucking monsters. That's what I wanted to see. Now, you could fault me, but you know, the humans are secondary usually for me in films like this. I know I'm a cold-hearted bastard.
No, it's not that, Mark. My problem is I hate writing off movies that I haven't seen because I know there's going to be another one of these fucking giant monster movies and all that stuff. And I'm going to sit through it,
and it's going to be the same thing, and you're going to have the same complaints,
right?
probably.
Because but that's the thing is like I feel like I could have said, when I first watched whichever of these, probably Godzilla from,
Sure.
The 2013 Godzilla was different in that nothing fucking happened in that movie. And that was the biggest complaint was Godzilla was on screen for like 10 minutes out of this 2-hour movie, right? And the rest of it was just like a really bad drama involving Elizabeth Olsen and Kick-Ass, like that nobody wants to see.
I'll agree with you there. Yeah, absolutely.
But Godzilla versus Kong, and it should tell you something that I don't know if I've actually watched Godzilla King of the Monsters. I may have, I may not have, but I don't like being able, like having to say, yeah, those movies are all trash without watching them. So I put myself through it, and my opinion hasn't changed. And it's not like I go into it saying, with my arms crossed, like I'm not going to enjoy this. I watch these and I take them seriously. But I feel like I'm taking the idea of watching the movie more seriously than the people who put them together. They're making amusement park rides. There's a scene early on, well, not that early, but in Kong Skull Island. It's after the helicopters have all crashed and the characters are stranded. They're trying to regroup. There's a bit where they're walking through this like tall grass. I think there's like
the
a
bamboo.
horizon line, right?
No, the tall grass. Okay,
right.
Okay. Yeah.
And I see Brie Larson in her shirt, and it is like this billowy kind of like a baby blue like overshirt. And then the next scene, she's wearing this kind of grimy tank top. And then the next cut, it's all the same scene, but I'm talking about the cuts. And the cut after that, she's back in the billowy shirt. I'm like, son of a bitch. They took a shot from later on in the movie where she's wearing the dirty tank top and put it in this scene to make the continuity of them like walking this great distance. That's laziness. No one's going to notice this.
I didn't.
I
didn't notice it either.
Right, but that's what the filmmakers are counting on. No one gives a shit about this. They're just showing up for the monsters. If you're showing up to watch this as a film, and that's the other thing I hate to say, like if I were to go up to, what's the name of this guy? The guy that made this movie, Jordan Vogt Roberts.
Yes.
I feel terrible going up to him and saying, you don't care about anything except getting this movie on screen for Warner Brothers and Legendary, you have not made a real picture. I don't even know if you're better than this. That's what I'm thinking.
Mhm.
And I don't think he'd like to hear that, but I don't know if he'd be able to disagree with it, because this isn't a real film. It's barely a movie. It's an amusement park ride that goes on for way too long.
Well, I wouldn't say it's an Ellen Smithy either.
Well, he obviously didn't take his name off of it. I mean, that's the thing, is it's not technically it's not a bad movie. You know, it looks great. It's got top-notch cast. All the money they poured into it is right up there on the screen. But what do I take away from it? I take away that I never want to see these movies again. I won't watch them a second time, but I will watch the sequels for the very reason that I expressed earlier, because I have to know what I'm talking about, and that sucks. I'm waiting for a good one of these.
I would still say it's a good party movie. Like, you have a group of people coming over, who doesn't want to cheer for the monster, even if there is no story or no character development. I mean, that's all I really care about too, is, I want to see the monster fight.
And that's what I watch too. And see, this is why I'm just a reviewer, and Mr. Ian Simmons is a critic. I totally
No,
get it.
there are
Just
critics who
kidding.
there are critics who legitimately stand up for these movies and like talk about them as like being films, and I scratch my head. I'm like, I feel like it's kind of like when people came out in the middle of the Fast and the Furious franchises and started talking about them in terms of cinema. I'm like, now you guys are just trying to get clicks.
Oh,
You cannot mean this in
Okay,
your
I'll
heart.
agree with you on that one. I don't like those. There is no story. It's just pretty cars.
and here I will be the stoic voice in saying I love those films, but after 3, the first 3 are like, okay, and then I really get into them. But maybe this is where I differ for some of those other folks. I fully acknowledge I would not say those are cinema. Okay. I will not say
Yeah.
those are cinema. I those films are my guilty pleasure. I love them, especially after the third one. Number 5 is where they really peaked, though. Then it came like G.I. Joe. Actually, a better G.I. Joe film than the G.I. Joe films. But in any case, for me, I find entertainment in them.
Yeah.
And and I don't fault anyone. I'm not saying at all that any of the monster films are that deep of films. I would not say that. I would not say, I would not go up there and go, oh well, this is this. No, I would fully come say, I just want to see the big monsters fight, and I get that. Okay, but that's what I'm looking for out of a movie like this, because I grew up on these monster films, and a lot of them, they do blend together after a while. And I'm not saying they're deep cinema by any means. It's what you're looking for, I think, in a film that affects you, as you can hear it tonight on the panel. Um, it's there was a discussion. I heard someone say they had just recently seen the Japanese cut of Godzilla. Until then, they had only seen the American cut of Godzilla, the original.
The original, okay.
The original. Sorry, you gotta differentiate. It's like talking Halloween. Oh, I loved Halloween. Well, which one? Halloween, or Halloween?
The second one, the first one, or the third one? It's a Neapolitan ice cream.
It's a Neapolitan ice cream, right? Exactly. But the original Godzilla. And I discovered this when I was doing and I apologize if I'm talking too long. I apologize. But when I was doing those back-to-back Godzilla films, because I had timed it out that, including the animated films on Netflix, they actually had 30 Godzilla films. So I watched one each day, and I reviewed one each day, sometimes watching 2, because I would watch the Japanese cut, and if I could find it, the Japanese cut and the American cut of those early Godzilla films. And the original Godzilla, I was talking to someone, the Japanese cut is far different than the inserted shots of Raymond Burr version of Godzilla. And I think, and even later on, the later Godzillas, like you get Shin Godzilla, is a freaking scary Godzilla. there's a scary Godzilla there versus the Godzilla that you get in the legendary pictures. You know, the material is handled differently there, and it has a darker tone for some of those films. Later on, the Godzilla films, the Japanese Godzilla films, got freaking crazy and not really great. Baby Godzilla in there. What the fuck? Kazuki blowing smoke ring. I'm like, what the hell is this? Right? Okay. But those
Well,
early ones,
when you're a kid, it's fun though. I mean,
sure.
how else are they going to draw people into the kaiju genre and make sure it continues if you don't get, a fresh audience?
Right. And it would be nice, bringing it back around, it would be nice if Kong Skull Island had taken some of the stuff out, as Ethan had mentioned, of the fluff, the tropes, the stereotypes and such, and worked in more of the depth where there was potential for it, for something to be more meaningful than what you get, which is just basically, yes, a roller coaster ride where what's the next big monster they're going to see. I personally appreciate the nod to Cannibal Holocaust in this film,
Oh
which
yeah.
thank you. You caught it too. You caught it too. Not I mentioned that, and some people look at me like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Have you ever seen Cannibal Holocaust?" I'm like, "No." Look at the cover of Cannibal Holocaust, then look at the scene in the bamboos where the guy gets the spider leg through the body. I'm like, that is totally a nod to Cannibal Holocaust, from the way it's shot to the way the body was. I'm like, totally going for that. Mad props for throwing that in there. Um, you know,
Well, the other thing, like when I like that spider, that bamboo spider, that
yeah,
was fun. But again,
Mhm.
I'm looking at the soldiers. I'm like, what are you doing? They're trying to shoot out its legs. All that's going to do is bring the giant like mouth down to your level where it's more likely to eat you. Again, no.
Mm. Well, I just thought it was dumb that they picked a fight with the spider to begin with. They could have moved over to an entirely different area because the spider wasn't attacking them. It was just walking through.
well, the spider did pick up one of their buddies. But he was, but they did shoot at him first, even though they I'm thinking he was intentionally skewered, though. The guy was intentionally skewered. I think the creature was looking at getting another meal because he saw the
Nuh-uh,
soldiers
Han
where they were.
Solo fought, he shot first.
At least we
Or he
don't.
could.
Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, or the spider could have been scared. I mean, that would have been like a funny angle to take with it because, like, if you're walking in your kitchen, you all of a sudden you say, "What the fuck is that?" and then you just want to step on it. Maybe that's what the spider was doing when he saw this human. He was like, "I've never seen that thing before," and squash it.
Well, they did do that with the other creature later on, with the one guy who was on by himself, and uh, the wood insect that ends up attacking, not attacking him. He gets scared, shoots it. The thing stops, just looks at him, goes, kind of hovers back and walks away. Like, okay, fuck you then.
I thought it was a baby walking stick, to tell the truth, just by its
It could have
reaction.
been.
It kind of groaned and backed up.
It could have been a baby. But
Oh, the
mm,
character who was yeah, I think you were just referencing him, Mark, but the
yeah,
one who was the guy who got eaten, and he was the one who was always writing the letter back to his son.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
that's a very loose Marvel connection. I don't know if
Hmm.
you recognize him. That was the actor Toby Kebbell, who was
No.
also in he did like mocap for the bunch of the Planet of the Apes movies, but he was
Oh.
also Doctor Doom in Fan Four Stick. Yeah,
Fan four stick. Okay, now that I will. Oh my.
you're welcome.
Ah. I tried to block that film out of my head. Thank you very much. You're talking
I
about
own that fucker on Blu-ray. What are you talking about?
the last four. Okay. So see, here you go, folks. Here's a prime example right here of what people enjoy.
Oh, I didn't say I enjoy it. I said I need to hold on to it as a relic.
Oh,
It's like
as a
that's
relic.
yeah. Come
I'm
on, man.
surprised I don't have as many legendary critters movies as I thought I did on physical disc. I got to change that. I've got King of the Monsters, which is still oh, yes. Sorry. Oh,
I
I
can't. I haven't seen it, or maybe I did. I don't know.
you probably yeah, you're probably just like there isn't enough human element in this. Um but I mean, Kara, for this film with the characters in that, what did you think? I want to get your perspective of Brie Larson's photographer character. Do you feel that they wrote her as a fairly strong character, or is she kind of very uneven throughout this film?
I mean, I don't take her as a throwaway. Her
Hmm.
character's there with a purpose to report.
Hmm.
What exact publication she feels that she's going to freelance those photos out to, who knows? But she tagged along because she felt there was an obvious story there. If
Right.
3 different people gave her the same cover-up story, she's obviously clever enough to figure out something's being hidden.
Yeah, she is, and I like that she does hold her own in some respects. She isn't always the damsel in distress, but she got enough other fodder characters here, so where she doesn't have to be. I think this film has a lot of people in it, which is another surprise for even for a monster film. There was a lot of that in that. And I'm sure Ian, but I'll ask you with Bree's character. Did you feel that she was just there? She didn't really serve anything.
Yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
tell me something about her beyond what she accomplished as a character.
What about what she accomplished?
She
She's
shot
a
the flare.
Did
she,
she have a family? Did she have aspirations or dreams, hobbies, anything?
She married Tom Hiddleston. They ran off and had a happily ever after this movie.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
I'm not sure on that. I'm not sure if they if they got married afterwards because
Well, they're trauma bound, so they
they
have
are
to latch
trauma.
onto each other.
They are trauma bound, but maybe they're just friends and they get recruited possibly by the Star League to defend the frontier from Zurg and I mean, they get recruited by Monarch at the end in that after credit sequence.
Yeah.
They
So
want Brie Larson's character is a 90th generation Xerox of Laura Dern's character from Jurassic Park. That's all she is.
She looks better though.
I'd fight you on that one.
I don't want to get knocked over every time somebody moves their head.
wow, fair enough.
Okay. Also, I gotta say, and this is something that drove my wife and I crazy while we were watching this movie. I dragged her into this, and she's, I think she's gonna start talking to me any day now. But Tom Hiddleston's shirt, his wardrobe. I mean, the most of the characters' wardrobes in this movie look as if they were, just finally pressed right before they yelled action. Even after they've been through firefights, helicopter crashes, rolling around in poisonous gas and dirt, and the next scene, his shirt looks exactly like it does in this damn background you've got on. It's the same color. It doesn't have any holes or burns or stains. Like, again, this isn't actually a movie. You look at Apocalypse Now, the movie that this thing is clearly based on, down to the
Yeah.
Colonel Kurtz character that Sam Jackson has. Those people look like they've been through the shit. This is like action figures walking around a set.
Yeah. Yeah, it's influenced not just by Apocalypse Now, but as I mentioned, there are a number of Vietnam films that it was trying to pull from, and I don't know if that's the director handling it to where they really build down to the cliche, or the three writers, three writers that they had for this script. Which when I see a film like that or see 3 writers or more, I always wonder what the original script was, and where it went, when it ended up being. Because I think, and don't get me wrong, I love Kong Skull Island, warts and all, and how shallow it is, I still love it. Okay. But there, I think, is a very interesting story they could have even focused on instead of having your cast of characters and a hot hot actor of that time. Let's see how many Marvel people we can get in, because this was made in 2017. So how many Marvel people can we get in a movie? The Japanese soldier's name was Gung Pai. And I think it would have been an interesting movie to be focused on a period piece, to where he and Hank Marlowe, John C. Reilly's character, have to work together on the island and try to survive. And like you said, you're eventually with the natives, but have some kind of story there to where they end up getting involved in somehow, learning about the skull, the skull crushers, or whatever, the skull creatures, and that, but doing a story with those two, trying to put their differences aside and such, and survive on this monster island with Kong about. I think there'd be an interesting story there.
That would have been an amazing movie. You have Tom Hiddleston playing the young version of that character.
Mm-hmm.
And you essentially make Enemy Mine, but set in the Kong
Right.
universe. That would be a legit interesting, because I kept thinking about, like, we do see some of these other creatures and they're okay. The skull creatures I thought just were kind of lame, because I'm like, they're essentially wearing their skulls on the outside of their bodies, and what? But I just think about, like, I know, people feel different ways about Cloverfield. It's not a perfect movie, but one of the things I thought was interesting was, in the middle of the movie, you get a different kind of monster, which are basically the parasites that live off the giant Cloverfield
Mhm.
monster. They become their own problem. I'm thinking about, like, Kong is such a massive ape. What if he had, like, lice or parasites or something that he just, like, flicks off of his fur, and it lands at the feet of Tom Hiddleston, and it's this giant, like, ferocious maggot that
Yeah.
Kong wouldn't even think twice about, but it's deadly to humans.
Mhm.
That kind of thing. Like, I want to see these people, like you're saying, Mark, up against the elements, just trying to survive on this island. Throw all the Vietnam shit out of there. It's not
Mhm.
good. It's not interesting. It's not fun. And just have a hardcore, tense survival movie. Open it up to a wider universe at the end, where they get rescued off the island, kind of like, Dutch at the end of Predator, and then say,
Sure.
"Oh, by the way, we're the Monarch Corporation. What did you
Mhm.
encounter here?" They're like, "I've seen some shit." And
Yeah.
it's like, "Well, so have we, and here's Gojira," whatever.
Right.
But
Well, what I
yeah.
got stuck on was that you actually threw in a nod at Godzilla 1984 there.
Mhm.
Hmm?
The Godzilla, he has lice that comes off of him and it attacks people on a ship.
Oh, that is completely coincidental,
Not
because I
like
haven't seen
fleas.
Fleas. They were fleas. Yeah. They were
right.
big. They were gigantic fleas. Yes.
Well, there you go. Rip that idea off and put it in the new one, because I had no idea. I was just pulling it out of my ass.
No, I liked it. I thought you did that on purpose.
No.
But that would have been a good nod to the previous ones, And Sam Jackson's being Sam Jackson in this. I always like Sam Jackson too. But he definitely is your standard soldier, doesn't want to let go of war character, which is why he agrees to go on this mission. And because he feels like there's more battle to fight, even though they signed the agreement to pull out of Vietnam. So yeah, I mean, you've seen these characters before if you've watched a Vietnam film, any Vietnam film. But not against Kong. They're not against a big kaiju. So I'll fight this movie. No. Yeah. Kong Skull. It's not a deep film. I never said it was. I was entertained by it. Car, you said you liked the final battle in this?
Yeah, I had a lot of fun. I especially liked that uppercut with the ship pilot, the
Oh,
blade
with the
pilot.
blade. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I like that Kong figured out how to use the weapons in that. And I guess that's why I always like Kong, and I especially like Kong in this, because he feels far smarter than say he was in a couple of the previous Kongs that we've seen, especially Peter Jackson's, or that other Godzilla versus Kong film. Oh my lord, that one's interesting to watch.
I mean, at the risk of catching rotted cabbage, he was the woke Kong.
The woke Kong. Why do you think what would you say makes him the woke Kong?
He seemed more self-aware, like he obviously
Mhm.
paid attention to his environment. He knew how to make use of it, like when he stripped the tree and he used it as a club to beat the, what was
Sure.
it, the skull crawler or whatever
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah, I like that he uses, different weapons, and that actually comes into play later on when he is trapped in Kong versus Godzilla. He actually does the same thing where he's throwing wooden spears at the holographic dome that is keeping him in place because he knows he's trapped. And that's what I like about this Kong. This Kong is smart, a lot smarter than, and you're right. He's got a lot of personality, I think, in this. And maybe Ian would agree. Kong's got more personality than the people. No,
He's got more character. Well, he is more character.
Ian put himself on mute. He just doesn't want to
No,
talk.
I kind of heard the crickets chirping on that one.
Yeah,
I was like, uh-oh.
I don't know. He's fine, but I mean, there's nothing in this Kong that I haven't seen in other, monster type movies where there's something that shouldn't have intelligence but kind of does, and you kind of relate to him, and you're kind of like, oh, I mean, I think about what is it, Bud from Day of the Dead, the zombie that they're training with the Walkman. It's like,
I love Bud. Bud's great.
I love Bud too, with that whole salute at the end with when the bad guy gets his guts ripped out. That's great, but I mean, it's a giant ape.
Yeah, I like my giant ape, but
you can, but you're just asking me to give some kind of an endorsement or thought. What do you think about this? I'm like, yeah, he's a giant fucking ape. He doesn't do anything in this movie that I didn't expect him to do.
Fair enough.
At least we didn't get ape droppings in this one.
Yes.
Depends on your point of view, honestly.
Okay, well, nobody stuck their arm in the poo.
That's true. Which, if you think about it in Jurassic Park, the pile of poo that you had versus the Triceratops, that wasn't the trike pile of poo she was digging in, because that pile of poo was actually taller than the trike was, who was sick. So there was no way the trike could have dumped that large pile of poo. So that poo that she was digging in for hints was completely different dinosaur poo. I don't know why she was crawling into that one.
And unless it was accumulated.
Even if it was accumulated, then that means they've got some righteous dung beetles who are putting in overtime.
No,
entirely possible.
That was not a perfect circle. Or
true.
A sphere.
It was not a perfect sphere. No, it was. Well, I didn't say that they were bright dung beetles, but But enough about Jurassic Park crap. Which, makes me. By the way, where does Kong go to the bathroom? I mean, he just
everywhere.
Just everywhere, drop trowel anywhere, or does he get a specific spot? Maybe that's why the skull crushers came after him, because he used their vent holes as a toilet, and they got pissed, literally and figuratively, and so they went after him. Ian is like, oh my God, how did you make this movie even worse, Mark?
They were shat upon, and then they got pissed.
Yes. And maybe pissed off and on. You never know. Special effects wise, and we'll wrap it up here, but special effects wise, I like the special effects in here. Well, I know we see it, I think, in general, though, for the amount of effects that are in this film, I think they're handled very well, especially the blending of the live action and the people. Actually, it's kind of funny. This film's from 2017, and I think the special effects in a 2017 film look better than 99% of the special effects I've seen in a 2023 film.
Oh yeah, definitely. I can't fault the effects work at all.
And the effects work, and like you said, Ian, the technical parts of this I think are pretty solid for a monster film. Um, it visually it sets out what it wants to do, what it wants to convey at all. It just depends on if you're just there to see the monster kill big things and small things, or if you actually want some extra meat to your story. Uh, that I think will, gauge how you enjoy Kong Skull Island. Kara, what's your final thought with Kong Skull Island? Would you recommend it?
If you're not looking for anything too serious or too heavy, or
Mhm,
somebody taking a younger person taking interest in monsters, I wouldn't see why not.
mhm.
It's a good introductory film, or if you just like big monster fights, I would say, yeah, go for it. It's a lot of fun.
And I think I know where Ian stands, but I still pose the question because I give everybody a chance. So, Ian, your final thought was Kong Skull Island. Outside of it's barely a film. Do you have any other thought with it?
I think Kara hit the nail on the head. If you have never ever seen any monster movie ever, and this is your first one, go for it.
Mhm.
If that's not the case, take it away, Mark. Let's wrap this up.
We're gonna wrap it up. I have made a mountain out of a molehill tonight, ladies and gentlemen. And I apologize. I hope you found this conversation entertaining. Uh, and yeah, for me, I dig the legendary monster verse, even with all its warts, and even if it's wafer thin, because for me, just getting to see these films on the big screen is fun. Getting to see kaiju on the big screen is fun. We have the technology and the special effects there to do these films, and it's great to see that someone did more than just one. But I think where I see Ian's coming from, and it is a valid point. I think with the technology there improving it, hey, you could do it with these kaiju films, which altogether, you include the Pacific Rim films in that, and not the Asylum ones, which there are many. There's a new one coming out, Monster NATO, which is like a Monster NATO, which is like a tornado, but with all their monsters stuck in it now.
Oh
Yeah,
my God.
yeah, it's
I'm
coming out.
still I'm still stuck on wanting to watch Sharkula.
Sharkula. um, you know, outside of those, if you're talking about the studios actually taking a chance putting money behind a monster film, they've proven they can do it now. You can buy into these monsters being in this world. Now, yes, take it into the next step to add some extra meat on the bones to these films where I think you could do a good balance of both monster. I don't care, but I know many people would, as those on this panel, where you could do monster fighting and still have your meaty characters that are more than just one note. And I think you can do that without taking away from the monster element. In all honesty, I think that was part of my problem with Peter Jackson's King Kong is that it went too far the other way, and I really, I was there for Kong, and I get all of this, including a bad casting of Jack Black, who is trying to deliver serious lines, but he looks like he's delivering a punchline and waiting for you to laugh. But anyway, there you have it, folks. Kong Skull Island. It's a divided film, much like other Legendary films. We do have a new monster film coming out, not from Legendary, but from Toho, called Godzilla Minus One, which is actually a sequel to the original Godzilla film. It's
Hmm.
intended to be a sequel to the original Godzilla film, and that one looks really good as well. But the fact that we do have an era where we're getting monster films keeps me excited for it, and I would like to see them now kind of break away from the template and do something a bit different with these. And we'll see if they do that or more of the same. Take the comic book formula, which see how long we can milk it. But
I'd like to
thank
see something crazy like
Mm.
you've got Gone with the Wind, but instead of the Civil War and people are killing each other, they're fighting a monster that interrupted the war.
Ooh, see, there you go. Period monster pieces would be interesting. More so than Godzilla in Vietnam because it was on a jungle island with monsters and everything, which is what they were trying to do here. But I like that Civil War monster film. You do get a few. I think there's one horror film that takes place during the Civil War, the Burrowers, I think it was called. That was interesting. But yeah, I'd love to see a kaiju in a Civil War. That'd be interesting.
Godzilla with the wind. There you go.
Godzilla
Yeah.
with the wind. I like that. Godzilla with the wind. Yeah.
It was actually dust in the wind, and don't ask what was in it.
Mm.
Gone with the Fire, maybe. There you go. Gone with the Fire.
Well, if that movie were to come out, I'd
Mm.
probably have the same reaction as Rhett
Mhm.
Butler did in Gone with the Wind. Frankly, my dear,
My dear,
I don't give a damn.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Now this is the place.
Nah, just
where-
stretch out that little old belly.
Oh, there you go.
Hmm.
So we're gonna wrap it up here, folks. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this conversation. And if you haven't seen Kong Skull Island, maybe it made you want to go see it and say, "Hey, just how bad is it? Is it as bad as Ian says?" Or you might see it and go, "Yeah, but there was big monster fights." So hey, it's as bad as Ian says, but there were big monster fights, especially the end. It still gets me exhilarated, and maybe that's why I'll watch Godzilla King of the Monsters every other day of the week. But now this is where I give my wonderful crew, who are very patient with this babbling host, the license to shill. So please, Kara, go ahead, shill away, please. Let folks know about your stuff.
Well, as always, you can find me on YouTube at Horror Retrospective. Tomorrow, I'm doing a Halloween stream about Halloween specials. And then this
Cool.
coming Saturday, I'm discussing Grey Gardens, the video verite film or documentary.
Cool, very cool. And I had the honor of being on her show. She was silly enough to let me on. She left her. She was like, "Oh crap, how'd he get on my show?" But no, where we got to talk about the menu, which was a fun
Yeah.
conversation. And it got me to watch the menu finally. So there you go. So yeah, check out all of her stuff over there at Horror Retrospective. Great conversations. And Ian, I know you got stuff to plug, sir. Please, the floor is yours.
Well, I'm Ian Simmons. I run Kicking the Seat, which you can find at kickseat.com. I'm also on YouTube, primarily on YouTube. Just look up Kicking the Seat and you'll find me there. Doing a bunch of episodes coming out. We've got a 20th anniversary retrospective of Kill Bill. We've got Beyond Hammerland and another episode of Academia Giallo coming up this weekend. So yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff and kind of closing out spooky season and looking forward to, I guess, seeing whatever awards season has to offer this year, including, we got to talk about Thanksgiving when it comes out next month. That's going to be amazing. Either way. So yeah.
My patrons have voted on Thanksgiving being their Patreon VIP episode. So, if you want to slum it with me, Mr. Simmons, maybe we could do that episode for the Patreon. So, which there is a Patreon, folks. I know you're surprised, right? No, but check it out. There's a lot of great stuff there, including hearing the conversation before the conversation. And that's like real cheap tiers. I've got a new series now. I've got to update the tier called I'd Buy That for $1.25, to where for the top tier, the $5 tier, I will go through a stack of movies I bought at the Dollar Tree over the past month, or the $1.25 tree, however you want to call it. And then we put it up for a vote, and the top 3 votes are films that I review exclusively for those patrons on that tier. So it's been a rocky road so far, been a little slow, but interesting journey. But check that out on our Patreon. And here every Monday, we're trying every Monday to be live. People keep coming back, which I appreciate very much. Thank you so much for all those who tuned into us live. And next month, folks, we've got an interesting lineup of films to come up. They're all films with the word kill in the title, but we're not Halloween kills. No, Screw that. We talked about that. No, we're not talking about that film again. I talked about that film enough, gave it way too much attention already. But next month, November, is Killing It month. So prepare yourselves, folks, as we talk about Dressed to Kill, A Time to Kill, Machete Kills, which will be our perfect 10 episode. And that'll be another conversation where Ian and I may be on opposite ends of the spectrum for that one. And Faster Pussycat Kill. Oh yeah, digging deep. So look for that in November, plus the Patreon episode on Thanksgiving. Thank you all, and I would just say a good night, everyone.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Get that motherfucking